Next up, we have this version of MJ. I'm going to put her in the A because this is probably the best MJ. I'm not even going to say probably. This is the best live action MJ out of the two we've gotten. I don't think she's as good as Gwen Stacy in The Amazing Spider-Man, but that's not what I'm comparing her to. In this series, though, she is pretty great. She's unique from any other version of the character we've seen. Her and Peter work great together. In Homecoming, you don't see a lot of her. She's just kind of the weird girl who makes a couple comments and jokes. But in Far From Home, obviously, you see their connection and their relationship, and it feels like a real high school relationship. They're so awkward. Their first kiss is just awkward. It's not like this romantic makeout section. Like, The Amazing Spider-Man, not to go back to there, but Gwen and Andrew Garfield. I'm using one character name, one real name, but oh well. Like, they're supposed to be just out of high school, and they're both, like, the hottest people in the world, just full-on making out within, like, 40 minutes into the movie. This is like a real relationship between teenagers, what it should be. And she's just a unique character that is, like I said, just different as a love interest. Now we have another Spider-Man Far From Home side character. Goes right beside him, the two people in the club of knowing who Spider-Man were before Mysterio revealed his identity to the whole world. Once again, just like Louis, the perfect side character. Him and Peter's chemistry is great in this. Everything he does is just hilarious. I feel like he just steals the show as a side character every time he's on the screen. And like I said, him and Peter's connection is really good. It's going to be a shame if we don't get more of these characters. Next up, we have Betty Brant, who is Ned's love interest. I'm going to put her in C. I mean, once she actually becomes a Betty Brant, and maybe if she works for the Bugle, if these characters stay and they go to Sony, that's more likely to happen, I feel like, because the MCU likes to change these characters a lot. But I mean, she does fine, and she does play the awkward teenager good in those announcements and stuff in the movies, but nothing really great about her character, just a C tier. And continuing that, we have Flash Thompson. Once again, a different take on the character, which I like. He's more of an intellectual match and not just this brute bully jock who's just punching Peter all the time. He's just actually making fun of him, and he's smart too. And there is an interesting dynamic how he loves Spider-Man and hates Peter, kind of like Black Cat, who isn't in the MCU obviously, but just a good little villain and take on the character. Next up, we have Nick Fury, A-tier character for me. Now, first of all, Nick Fury is one of the most iconic characters in the series, obviously, and I really wish we got to see more of him in the later movies. But I think it's probably for the better, I guess, that they decided to focus on the main Avengers for Endgame and Infinity War. In the first Avengers and Iron Man 2 and stuff, he is very important. The Winter Soldier, he has some great moments in, like, every time he's on the screen, he's entertaining. He just plays his character perfectly. Continuing, we have Agent Hill. I'm going to put her in the C category. I don't think there's anything particularly bad about her, but I just don't think this casting was the greatest, and she just kind of feels a little out of place. I mean, her and Nick kind of have a decent relationship, like friendship-wise and stuff, but there's just nothing great about her C category. Moving on, Hot Aunt May. I'm going to put her in the A. It's actually an Aunt May that Peter, like, can be friends with and has that relationship with. It makes sense that Aunt May is not 102 years old to me because, I mean, how old was Peter's mom? Like, just think about that, why we've always got 102-year-old Aunt Mays. But she actually has a real relationship with Peter. The stuff with her and Happy could have been more comedic stuff in future movies, but who knows if we're going to see that again. Not to keep bringing that up to make you sad, but just up in the air. Next up, we have Sonny Burch. I'm going to put him in B. I mean, he plays a good enough version of this little villain who is kind of the main villain, but really not, because I guess it's more Ghost. But, I mean, he has some good lines, some good scenes, but nothing really too great. But he's better than the average hero or villain. Okay, so I did not realize that there were different Groots on this list. I'm going to put this one in B2. I said the sacrifice for that Groot. So we'll do that whole sacrifice and first Guardians movie for this Groot. And this reasoning for this Groot being here is the Thor scene and how he actually, after being a complete asshole teenager the whole time, sacrifices his own arm, cuts it off so Thor can have the hammer and live. Or the axe, I guess. Moving on, then we have Valkyrie. I think this is the perfect complement to Thor's character. A character who's gone through a lot of loss and was in a bad place and finally gets on the right track, obviously with Thor and Ragnarok. Some interesting stuff could happen with her being the new queen of New Asgard. Hopefully they touch on that in Thor 4, but who knows. She is confirmed to be in that, so I'm assuming they will, but you never know where they're going to go. And continuing that, we have Hela. I'm going to put her in the B category. Now, I know some people love this villain completely, but I mean, I think she's good. I'm not sure what I'm thinking. This is an A category villain here. First of all, the connection to her and Thor is great. How she reveals the truth of Odin and history of Asgard and how it was built. Kind of similar to the United States, honestly. Like, not the greatest way we got here, but we did get here. but it's also just one of those badass villains that just has the power, manipulative, and just one of the better villains and better written villains we've had in the MCU. And obviously her powers, she can go hand in hand against Thor and Loki, as shown in that movie. And she might still be alive, even though it was implied that she died. Moving on, we have Loki. This is an S tier. As a villain, I think is his best parts, which he's kind of always a villain, even when he is being the good guy. You never know what he's going to do. And that's the best part of this character. Every time you think, oh, he's going to actually help, he's going to do this, he grabs the Tesseract or does something or bamboozles someone. And every time he's on the screen, you love him. He's a fan favorite. Once again, he's funny. He is menacing as a villain too, and him impersonating Captain America is my favorite thing in the MCU, honestly. We have Jeff Goldblum's Grandmaster next. This is an A. He has a small role, but he makes such an impact on that movie. Goldblum, his shine comes through in this character. Perfect amount of funniness. He's kind of, you can see how he's actually smart in this mastermind too, but just, I don't know how to describe this character besides Goldblum 2.0. So next up, a terrible picture. I just had to zoom in for a minute, but this is the Vulture. I'm going to put him in A+. This is just another great Spider-Man villain we had. The twist in this movie of Homecoming is amazing. Obviously, Vulture's still out there, so depending on the whole MCU Sony thing, this character could come back. And this is a guy that is coming from, he thinks he's doing the right thing again. He's just like, oh, I'm just helping my family, but obviously he gets really advanced. And he says he's looking out for the smaller guys that don't have as much, but you really see that he's kind of blind to what he's doing, because he's living in this obviously mansion in New York City. Like, they're doing very well off. He doesn't need to keep robbing like he is, but he's continuing because he thinks he's doing it for the small guy. He thinks he's just hurting the rich, and kind of like a Catwoman situation in Dark Knight Rises, but obviously better than that. And now we have Vulture's daughter, Liz. I'm going to put her in B. I think she's a good enough love interest for just a one-off character that we'll probably never see again. But she does work. She's more than just like the hot crush girl. She is smart. She has some magical character to her. And obviously her connection to the Vulture makes it better. And that whole driving to prom sequence, or Homecoming. I don't know why I call it prom. The movie's name, Spider-Man Homecoming. But that is one of the best sequences in that movie. Now we have unnamed teacher guy. These both get B's from me. They are funny. First of all, the first guy is funny in Spider-Man Homecoming, but Far From Home, both of these two really shine through, because Far From Home is 90% a comedy, and these two make it. They just have some one-off jokes that just catch you off guard and are very funny. Now we have random love interest of MJ. I mean, I don't really have anything too bad about him, so maybe D's a little bit harsh, but I mean, it's just one of those characters that's kind of generic in a movie full of like these non-generic characters and different takes on these classic Spidey characters. He's just a guy that likes MJ. He's kind of like the study guy, but you know MJ's not going to get with him because she doesn't like him. So there's no real competition between him and Peter, even though they're trying to make you feel like it, because if MJ doesn't like him, what's the pressure of us, the audience? Obviously Peter has this rival, but to us it really doesn't mean anything besides the fact that he almost gets killed by Peter. Next up, we have Peter Quill's dad, played by Kurt Russell, who I also forgot the name of, which I don't know why. I'm putting him in the D category. You know, I don't like Guardians 2, and I'm just going to say he's the main reason I don't. You can watch my other rankings to explain why. We're moving fast. We have the Collector here next. I'm putting him in C. Now, I do think he's very entertaining, and just not in enough movies and stuff really to put him higher, though. But like I said, a very entertaining character when he is on screen. Now we have Yondu. B category, easily. Best part of Guardians 2, which is a movie I don't really care for. Obviously, him and Peter Quill's relationship, I think, works really well. Next up, we have Sean Gunn, who I also forgot his name. I'm really bad at this, but there's 111 characters. Got to come in some slack here. I'm just going to put a C. Good enough scenes in here, and, I mean, he does the motion capture for Rocket and Groot, but that doesn't count towards this character. Just a good character. Next up, we have Kismet, and this goes in the C. Obviously, they're setting her up to be a bigger villain, but in this movie, she really wasn't the main villain, and she's just kind of bland. But the stuff with her and Adam Warlock, if we ever get to that in Guardians 3 in like 5 years, it will be good, I feel like, but just average for now. Now we have the Ancient One. I'm going to put B, her and Doctor Strange, and she's in Endgame a little bit, which she has some really interesting scenes with Hulk and that too. But I really like her, and how there's kind of that like dark side that you figure out. Like, everybody thinks she's this great one, and you find out she's having her powers from the dark dimension. I just think it's a really interesting dynamic, and obviously she's a big part of how Doctor Strange became who he is. Next up, we have Rachel McAdams as generic love interest. Now, I do think her and Doctor Strange have some good chemistry. Actually, I'll put her in B. She's not bad. Like I said, there's nothing bad about her, so I'll put her up above just average. And like I said, her and Benedict Cumberbatch have pretty good chemistry, but she's not in the movie a whole lot. And you kind of do feel bad for her because he's just an asshole to her, and then he just comes back out of nowhere through a portal in the closet. But she's a good side character. Next up, we have Doctor Strange 2 villain, probably in the first 10 minutes of the movie, who gets defeated. Can't remember his name, but that's definitely what's going to happen. Just a C. He's okay, just kind of generic villain. Speaking of that, though, we have Caecilius. This is an F. Now, I love Doctor Strange, as I said, but the villain is definitely the worst part of that movie. This is just your generic opposite of the good guy, same-ish powers, bad guy, but you don't get any real backstory. I don't get any real motive or anything. He's just kind of a bad guy. Obviously, Dormammu ends up being the bigger bad guy, but he's not a good character at all, Caecilius. Dormammu, I'm going to put in C because it's hard to put him any higher because he's been in the MCU for all about 2 minutes, and all he does is get bamboozled by Doctor Strange. I think that's a good scene, but we just haven't seen enough of this. Moving on, we have Wong. I'm going to put in A. I like him and Doctor Strange chemistry and connection now that they have. He's a good character in Infinity War and Endgame. Just one little line, and he just stands out to you on the screen. Obviously, he'll probably be in Doctor Strange 2, but I just really like how he fills in this role and his chemistry with the different heroes and Tony for that one little scene. Like I said, he's not in a lot of scenes for very long, but he's a funny character. Now we have Sharon Carter. I'm going to put her in B. I think she's going to be great in that TV show. I think that fits her perfectly. I think the stuff with her and Captain America making out when she's the niece of Peggy Carter is a little weird. Other than that, though, she's a fine character. There's nothing bad about her, like I said, but hopefully we get to see a little bit more of her in action and doing stuff in this new show. I feel like she'll have the time to shine alongside Bucky and Falcon. Moving on, we have Zemo. I'm going to put him in the A. This is a different villain than we've really seen in the MCU at the time. He's really just a full-on psychological villain, and he plays our heroes perfectly, and I like this character. Like, he has good-ish motivations, and once again, the stuff with his family, and then you see that they're gone. I don't know, it just works for me, and hopefully we get to see a little bit more of him, and I think actually they confirmed he's going to be in that show with Bucky and Winter Soldier. Now we have Crossbones. I'm going to put him just in C. He's a fine villain, and he has decent enough moments in Winter Soldier and Civil War, but just kind of a small-scale side villain, like a mini-boss almost, so just average. Alright, I'm not gonna lie, I don't know who that is that I put up here in the B category, but I'm gonna put the real T'Chaka up there, and I have no idea who that character is, I'm not gonna lie. Now we have Howard Stark. I'm gonna put in B. Obviously, it's a different actor in Endgame and the First Avenger. I just think he has good moments in these movies and Civil War and stuff. And obviously the stuff with him and Tony in Endgame is really what makes him above average. So be careful. So moving on, we have our mother of Tony Stark, who I honestly forget her first name, sadly. But she's she's not in enough scenes like Howard and stuff. I mean, she's fine in like the 3 minutes she's in Civil War, but that's all we get. Next up, we have Ultron. I'm going to put him in A+. I really think Ultron is one of the better villains in the MCU. And I think Age of Ultron is one of the most undeservedly hated movies in the entire MCU. I think it just works. Now, he does quip and make a little bit more jokes than I would hope, but it doesn't take away from the character, and he is still very menacing and can just switch bodies whenever, and has one of the most evil plans until we get Thanos in the MCU. So I think it's a worthy follow-up to Loki. Obviously not as good as Loki, but it's not a bad villain like everybody says. Next up, we have Quicksilver. He's in C, and this is just one of the most underutilized characters in the MCU. I don't understand why they killed him off so fast. Maybe they're going to bring back a different version of Quicksilver, but they just didn't give this guy enough. Now we have Doctor from Age of Ultron. I'm just going to put in C because she doesn't do anything bad, but nothing great either. Now we have Heimdall. I'm going to put him in A. I really like Heimdall, even though this is from the last ranking. I just like how him and Thor work together, and he's like the actual good guy that Thor can trust through all of it, and Ragnarok, obviously. I'm very sad that they killed him off in Infinity War, and we're not going to see more of him, but the actor has even said that he believes there might be time for him to come back, and the MCU loves bringing people back alive, so maybe he'll be in the Loki series or something, because that's an alternate universe. Who knows? Next, we have Peggy Carter. I'm going to put her in A. Her and Captain America's relationship is really what makes the entire payoff at the end of Endgame as huge as it is, and how emotional it is. Peggy Carter is the reason that you care about that, and she's actually a good, interesting character. The first Avenger, she's great in, and you can see that she even likes Steve before he gets the super serums. Now we have Yellow Jacket. I'm going to put him in D. This is just a villain once again, kind of like Asilius, that's just the opposite of our hero, but evil. He has a little bit more powers and stuff, obviously, but we do not see him and Ant-Man interact until the final battle of the movie. There's no real connection there. He does like take his daughter and stuff, and then they fight on a train set, which is a cool fight sequence, don't get me wrong, but the villain on its own, not that great. And now we have Ronan. First of all, I don't think this guy looks like, he doesn't fit in like visually into the art style of these movies. I feel like he actually looks like a robot in these movies, especially the first Guardians. But that's not what's knocking him down. I just don't think we've gotten enough of this. There's interesting stuff how he's like brave enough to go away from Thanos and just go on his own plan and stuff, but just not the greatest character, and I feel like it's kind of used wrong, and hopefully we get to see better stuff in the Captain Marvel sequel. It seems like what they were building up to, but we'll never know. Now we have guard agent guy thingy from Guardians. He's okay here. Alright, this is killing me that I can't remember this guy's name, and I looked it up, and he's not even on the cast list for Winter Soldier that I found, so unnamed guy again. Let's see if anybody's been keeping track. How many guys have I forgotten the names of? But he goes in C. He's a good enough little side-ish villain, and he is pretty evil, but nothing great about him either. Now we have Robert Redford's Alexander Pierce. I'm going to put him in A, honestly. I think he fits his role perfectly, and just how he manipulates everyone, and S.H.I.E.L.D., and Nick Fury, and he just has some great interactions with Captain America and Nick Fury in this, and the scene where he's sitting in his house and ends up having to kill the maid or assistant is one of the most badass scenes in that movie too. Now we have Jane Foster, and I'm going to put her in the D category for right now. This is just a bland, boring character that doesn't work. I mean, she has been in the first two Thor movies, which were kind of known for being bland, but hopefully as She-Thor, she can come back and be a bigger and better character. I do think Natalie Portman's a good actress, but she's just not good as this character. Speaking of not good characters, though, in those Thor movies, we have Malekith. Just a boring villain. You don't care about anything he's doing, any of his plan. We don't really get enough backstory on him. Once again, boring is the word for this villain. Now we have Odin. I'm going to put him in C. Some people might have him higher, but I just don't think there's anything particularly great about him. I mean, him and Thor's relationship, I don't really care as much as I should. He is good in Ragnarok. I'll give him that. In the beginning scene with Thor and Loki in Ragnarok, he is good in that. Now we have Thor's mother, who I'm putting up here solely because of her Endgame performance, and she's good in the Dark World too, but in Endgame, that little scene with her and Thor is good enough to bump her up for me. Now we have unnamed Thor friend that I can't remember. This is just an average, fine little side character. Now we have Darcy Lewis, I believe is her name. Pretty sure. I'm not sure about Lewis, but Darcy. I'm putting her in D. I find her so annoying. Every joke, every comment, everything she says I find so annoying. D category. Now we have a little kid from Iron Man 3 who came back in the funeral. I'm going to put in C. He has good enough moments with Iron Man in Iron Man 3 it is. I think he's good in that. I mean, I think it's a bit of a stretch to bring him back for the funeral, but it was a good moment too. Now we have Killian. I'm going to put him in B. I think he's a pretty good villain, and I know people are just mad about the Mandarin twist, but I think he's a good final villain. He is a very smart guy, again, who can kind of match Tony somewhat on that intellectual level, and even though it's kind of in your face with the beginning of that movie, how they show the party flashback and say you make your own enemies, I do like that. Now we have Maya. I forget her last name, but I know she's Maya. I'll give her a B. Obviously, we don't get to see a lot of this character, and we never will get to see more of this character, but I think she's good enough in this movie, and I don't really have that much to say, but I think she's good enough, better than average. Then we have Phil Coulson. This is an A. I really wish we got to see him and they didn't kill him off so early. I think he's in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but I have not watched that yet. This is just a good guy working for S.H.I.E.L.D. through the good and bad times, and his little cameos in Captain Marvel show that even more. Just how he's a good guy who just wants to do the right thing. He just has his Captain America trading cards, and just a good character, and I wish we got to see more of him. Then we have Eric Selvig. I'm going to put him in C. I mean, he's in Avengers and Thor the Dark World. Then he becomes like crazy, insane scientist guy running around naked. I mean, he's just a fine character, I guess. And moving on with that, we have the Red Skull. I'm going to put him in C too. He's more interesting before he reveals that he is the Red Skull, honestly. And after that, I don't think this character is that great. Next up, we have Justin Hammer, who I'm going to put in the B. And if you watch my Iron Man villain ranking, I think this character had the most potential if they made him the main villain and made him more like his plan succeeded in the very beginning of the movie to make Iron Man look evil, but it really doesn't, and just wasted potential. But I do like what this character does in his role. Next up we have Whiplash. I'm gonna put him in D. I mean, it's just not a good character for me. I think there was once again potential here, but they needed to pick one villain, and we just got less out of this character in the small role. Justin Hammer kind of did okay in the small role. Whiplash needed to be the main focus if they were going to make him the villain, which they did. We just don't get enough backstory there. Like, there's teases, but we just don't get enough of it. Next, we have Abomination. I'm just going to put in C just for the boss fight at the end alone. It's just fun to see two, like, Hulks fighting and bashing and destroying things together. Just an okay villain. Now we have Obadiah Stane. I'm going to put him in A. I think this is the perfect Iron Man villain, especially for the first movie. He just works. Some of his dialogue is some of the best stuff in Phase 1 for sure. And like I said, he's just a good villain who is pure evil, and you can see that develop through the story. I sadly don't remember this guy's name, but he gets a B from me. He's good in that first Iron Man movie and in the little role he gets. Now we have Taserface, just C. I know he's there for comedic relief, kind of. He's an okay character. I mean, I don't have any big complaint. Now, I believe this character's name is Nakia. I might be wrong about that. I'm going to put her in B. I think her and Black Panther do have somewhat of an interesting connection, but I don't know. Maybe we'll see more of that story in the sequel. For right now, though, she's just a B. And we're going to finish off with the last Groot, and he goes in the B with his fellow Groots. So there it is. Everybody can take a deep breath. Let me know how much you hate me for my list and my reasoning in the comments below. Or if you completely agree and think I only got like one or two wrong in your opinion, let me know that too. And like I said, always leave your S and F tier. I'm not expecting you to rank 111 characters. I will link this tier maker thing in the description, so if you want to make your own, make sure to subscribe and make tons of ranking videos and covering all the stuff happening in the MCU. Check out the videos that are going to be on screen, and I will see you guys in the next one.